All right, it's Friday, so let's get this party started. So, hey everybody, NovelistCrim here, and welcome to Writing Company and Motivation. This is a stream hosted by the Crimsdale writing community full of writers, editors, artists, and a bunch of other wonderful folk like yourselves. Essentially what this is, it's an accountability stream where we get together and we do some writing. The show is hosted on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Aside from that, we're going to be diving into a little bit of a journal entry to start. Then we do a little bit of writing discussion and kind of just group writing. We kind of chill out, hang out, and get some work done as we move along. So, without further ado, let's get that underway. All right. So, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what's called. I guess let's just dive into the writing, portion of this stream here. I think that it'd be a lot more interesting to start off that way. So, let's talk about like what we got in our Discord here is a question from one of our good buddies, and basically the question is, how does one come up with ideas for character motives and goals for both the short and the long term throughout the course of a story? It's a good question. So essentially, and if you are interested in getting this, you can check out the journal in our Discord. But what I like to do, one of the techniques I do for like creating a character is I think of like what kind of person I want them to be. I think of them at their finest and best moments. Like, you know, who's that awesome, you know, character that I'm excited to talk about? Who's that like really great character that, like, you know, is a hero that wins the day, that does all these wonderful things? And then I take that person and I put them all the way at the end. And that's like the final snapshot. You know, at the end of the journey, this guy's going to be this, right? Then I take the exact opposite, the mirror world, and throw it all the way at the beginning. And now the character has a lot to work on. They have a lot to do. And there's a story in the middle that kind of describes how does that character get there? What lessons do they learn? What things do they need to get or like come across in order to become that type of person? So like now your whole middle of your story is all based about that. Like what would it take to get them to be the person that they want to be? At the beginning of the story, obviously your character is extremely flawed, which is, you know, interesting. And like flawed people, they always have like this the sense of want, a thing that they think will make them happy, right? And usually that's not exactly the thing that will make them happy. It's usually something else. It's whatever they need to work on personally, right? So let's say, for example, my main character is trying to, you know, in my novel, my main character is looking for money, and also like he wants to be free by his own choices. Like he wants to work hard, make money, and then, like, you know, find freedom through his own effort. He doesn't want the help of anybody else. In fact, he wants to take on the world and not rely on anyone. But the real lesson of what he needs is he needs to trust other people. He needs to open up again. He needs to find a found family. And that's what the whole middle of the story is about. It's basically, you know, you have this character who's like reluctant to join, you know, people. He's reluctant to be, you know, working together in groups and such, but then he's forced to be a part of an organization. He's forced to like, you know, face this dislike, and slowly but surely he becomes, you know, a part of this family. He becomes a leader, and you know, how that happens is basically based on like what's going on in the middle. And I think that that's a really great way to kind of like not only keep like character motivation, but also grow like a sense of progress, and kind of like just keep the dynamic interest of your character moving. It's a technique that's used by Save the Cat. If you guys haven't, yeah, they did. Basically, like with his story, his parents, you know, his father died and his mother basically abandoned him, and you know, ever since that happened, he's just basically been forced to raise his sister alone as a young teenager, and he's been doing it on his own for a long while. He's only like 15 when the story starts, so it's a rough life. It's extremely hard, and there's not a lot of people that are willing to help out. You know, you're too young to really do anything useful, and you know, people look down on you and they don't want to help. So you're just a street kid. So like, you know, that's his that's the chip on his shoulder. He doesn't like the idea of like begging, borrowing, and stealing. He doesn't like the idea of being indebted to anybody, or like, you know, having anybody have power over him. So his main goal is to get strong enough and find enough independence to just basically never have to deal with anyone again. But that's not the right way that he needs to conduct life, and that's made clear very early on. That you know, it's repeatedly mentioned that, you know, he must work together. He must learn to trust and rely on other people, because, you know, this whole us versus the world thing, it's not working. So that's the general gist of what that's going to be about. So yeah, I mean, I hope that answers that question. We can probably talk a little bit more about character stuff too. Let's think. So like when I'm designing characters, there's like such a whole slew of like different methods of designing characters. So it's really tricky to like, you know, pinpoint what would work or what doesn't. I can guide you to some places that would be useful. Like for example, one of the Jim Butcher methods of creating a character is like, you know, when you design a character, you pick out like you know, if it's a good guy, you pick out like 6 positive traits and 3 negative traits, and then you kind of like infuse that into a character. That way they have like a little bit of flaws, you know, they feel human. Consider what they're doing when you're writing them. Like it's not so bad to like do what's called an exotic position. So say for example, Mr. Incredible working in a cubicle hell, right? So Mr. Incredible, you know, from The Incredibles, is this superhero that could basically lift up cars and, you know, do all this wonderful, you know, powerful strength stuff. He's a superhero, and yet he's working in a cubicle, you know, just typing on a computer. So it's like a really interesting sort of like just you know, I guess juxtaposition as to like, you know, why is he here? That immediately grabs the reader. It's like, why the hell is this person like here when they're so, you know, they could be doing awesome stuff. It's one thing. Another thing that is mentioned by Jim Butcher is like exaggeration of a character. Exaggeration's interesting in the sense that like you want to kind of like drive home some of the stuff that that makes a character like very different. Like, you know, if he's tall, make him like, you know, NBA basketball tall, or, you know, it's a lot more interesting to see somebody like, you know, you can have like a tall person walking down the street, or you can have like somebody who's so tall that they're hitting their heads on the light, you know, light posts or something like that. It's like, whoa, what? You know, it's intriguing. It's like, what the hell? You don't have to go like so, you know, severe with that. But let's see here. One of the things I also like to do, taken from like Jim Butcher stuff, again, one of my favorite authors, is that he mentions like the concept of using like props and traits, right? Props and traits, what does that mean? So like props, there are certain like you know, things that the character would have, or, you know, like on them all the time, you know, like you know, like Superman. You can easily describe Superman as like, you know, red one, you know, blue outfit, red underwear on the outside, red cape with an S on the chest. You know, you'll immediately know who you're talking about, you know, if you simply describe like some of those things, and just like pounding home those like traits of like, oh yeah, that's that guy, which is really cool, because it's like, you know, it builds that like virtual image like in your head of who that character is. Same thing with like traits, you know, like physical traits. Like, you know, when you're describing a character, it's good to like repeat and like kind of use those similar words to drive in, you know, that character's description. That way that, like, you know, when you mention it offhand, like let's say that they're talking about a character and these two characters don't know who that other character you're talking about is, right? So you just say, oh yeah, you know, I just saw a person, they have like, you know, chestnut hair, bone white skin. And it's like, well, if you mention chestnut hair and bone white skin like repeatedly throughout, like, you know, the other portions of the story, whenever you mention that character, people will immediately know. They're trained to know, like, oh yes, it's that character. And then like, ooh, you can be like subtle and interesting about it. Like, you know, that's another concept. Let's see. Yeah. Kind of going in with like a little bit of an empty head today, guys. You know, in terms of what's it called? Some wisdom. Do you guys have any other questions? Trying to think if there's anything else that we can discuss. I guess today was like, you know, pretty chill. I got a couple of like critiques back from the writers group, and they were all right. I got some like names that basically, or what's on that name? Sorry. I got some comments that basically said that, like, you know, story's good, action's good. Some people are asking, like, you know, can you describe a little bit more about like you know, the fantasy world and kind of like lock it in for us, for those of you, you know, for those of us who do not know about magic. And I'm a little on the fence with that, mostly because, like, you know, I describe it, but, like, you know, sometimes people don't remember, or like, sometimes people, by people I mean like my writers group, sometimes they're asking for a little bit too much detail, like, you know, because like when they do their writing, you know, this is something that they want for themselves, but like when they do their writing, they you know, they describe the color, the shape, this texture, every little detail about a thing. But me personally, I like a more punchy sort of writing style. I like things moving quick. I like it to focus on the characters, and to me, the some of the smaller details are not exactly as you know, as important as what they do. And to add more detail to such a thing is like slowing down the pace of the story. So, you know, if a sorcerer conjures a barrier, I don't really care what color the barrier is. Is it important? Does it matter if the, you know, if it's green or blue or whatever? If it does, then include it. But if not, who cares, right? So like, you know, a barrier is a barrier. So that's all you need to know. And you kind of like let the reader come up with their own ideas as to like what is in your world. That way you can kind of like, you know, because like they're gonna describe something or like imagine something in their own head anyways, right? So to like, you know, sit there and add too much detail, it kind of just sits there and stops the story, and then like everything's just like, oh wait, now I have to read all these descriptions and such. It's just like, no, just get on with it. Doesn't really matter. I totally know that. Like I have a hard time with Tale of Fire because I write too much detail. Yeah, yep. Like, I don't have the attention span to, like, you know, listen to every single details, because, like, I just really don't care. There's a good example of that in a story I read. It was something that, like, kind of mentioned that there was, like, you know, you're, like, in a room with, like, you know, brown carpets, and it's, like, soft, cushy beneath your feet. There's, like, you know, you walk in past the living room where they have the striped couches and these beautiful polka dot curtains, and you know, there's like a low coffee table with a bunch of stains on the top of the coffee table. There's a green mug sitting in the cup. Sorry, there's a green mug sitting in the plate. And as you walk through, you go to a kitchen, and it has like the you know, this wonderful smell of roses, and you can see like there's a bunch of roses next to the oven, but there's like a fire going on in the oven, which is really confusing. And what color was the couch? Like, you know, like, do you fucking remember? Like Yeah, it gets too much detail. It's like, you don't fucking care. Just get on with the goddamn story. Like, so that's basically the point. Like, you know, you don't want to drown your you don't want to drown your characters in too much story. You don't want to drown them in too much detail, unless, like, you know, it's like that old saying: if the don't describe the shotgun on the wall unless it's going to go off in the next scene. You know, if it doesn't matter, don't include it. Just keep it simple. Writing, you know, should be simple. So, like, you know, stick more to the towards the character and the action. You know, and also keep in mind that, like, actions should take priority over, like, all other things, right? So, like, let's say, for example, a gun goes off and the bullet flies out of the barrel and hits the character, right? You don't want to describe the person. You don't want to describe the gun. If you're describing, like, you know, if you're following the character, you want to describe the character's immediate reaction, pain, or something like that. It's just like, you know, you don't want to stop the story and look at, like, you know, the roses or anything like that. Things that don't matter. It's like the character got shot, there's a reaction, like that type of thing. So it's almost like a weird dance, like a ping pong between you know, actions and reactions. So it's something to consider. Let's see. Hey, you don't have to. Like, we're gonna be posting the highlights on YouTube anyways, so you'll be able to, like, get access to that. Yeah. Sometimes less is more. So yeah, a lot of people like to, like, you know, especially, like, new writers, they like to, you know, add a shit ton of detail. Like, I remember when I was first starting off, like, I had to, like, detail everything. I had to know where the rooms were. I had to know every goddamn detail about, like, what they ate, what it smelled like, you know, what the people were wearing at the time, and it really doesn't matter. Like, you know, you want to, like, you know, touch a little description there, you know, but then just, like, you know, enough to be dangerous. Know enough to be dangerous, then move on. Is right. A nice vague description of, like, what generally, you know, like, he came in a 3-piece suit, you know, or a friendly looking 3-piece suit. What does friendly looking 3-piece suit mean? Whatever you want it to be. Doesn't matter. That sounds like, it's, like, very akin to, like, stage writing from what I've heard. Like, when you're writing, like, a play, or when you're writing, like, a you know, like a screenplay, it's very limited detail, like, a lot of limited detail. Mostly it's just lines of dialogue, like, kind of telling you what to do, or at least, like, telling you what they're saying. And then there's, like, usually, like, information about, you know, time of day, setting, where things are at, you know, what's going on in the background. But very, very sparse, really. So, like, when you're looking at, like, a screenplay, the point of that is that, you know, people are going to, you know, the actor's job is to bring that character to life. So they're going to read and interpret what the dialogue says, and then, like, you know, that's what, like, you know, kind of brings things together. And also, for a screenplay, it's not the author's job to come up with, like, you know, how the, you know, these characters look. It's up to the, you know, the costume and design division, you know? It's up to, like, all these other people's. Each person's going to, like, read that script, and then they're gonna have, like, some director or something like that have an idea. They're gonna take that and then, like, you know, let it spark and let it become their world. And that's, like, one thing to, like, keep in mind too, is that when you do create something, you're sending it off into the world, and it's no longer your world, really. It becomes the world of other people, and they essentially take the ideas that, you know, that you've written down, and then they build upon it. They'll come up with their own, like, you know, suggestions as to, like, what could be there, what must exist. They come up with, you know, their own theories and, you know, explanations as to why something happens. And that's a beautiful thing, because your world now is both engaging and real. It's real to them, real enough for them to, like, you know, add upon it and think, like, what could be done with this, you know? It's also, like, where fan fiction comes from in general, you know? Somebody comes up with, like, you know, an idea, like, let's say, for example, Skyrim, and all of a sudden there's Skyrim fanfics of, like, you know, what they think would happen, or, like, how they think things would go down. And it's really cool, you know? Oh, know enough to be dangerous? Basically, it's like know enough to, like, you know, do something with it. Know enough to be useful, know enough to be dangerous, same thing. I wonder when my finished mission, how much people will see. They complete motivations. Realizing that you left space in your book for readers and their thought and imagination. Yeah. As opposed to a hostile 3-piece suit. Not much, you know. For some reason, I was imagining Armstrong for some reason. From that, like, Metal Gear game. I love that character so much. See, that was that character Armstrong is a great example of, like, you know, exaggeration, right? Like, he's very motivated. He's obscenely strong and outspoken as hell, right? Like, that is exaggeration at its finest, right? And he's also a turbo nerd. It is such a good design. And then, like, obviously he has flaws where he wants to, like, you know, do a certain you know, he wants to do whatever he's doing and whatnot, and he believes, like, wholeheartedly his way. So I think that, like, yeah. So, like, you know, that type of shit, that's great character design. It's fantastic. It's a character that's so strong, it just stays in your head. It's so good. What about parallels? How do you mean? Like red versus blue? Similar yet different? Yeah, that's actually an interesting concept now that I think about it. This is actually a really good, this is actually something that's really, you know, we can carry on into, like, the character discussion, actually. So let's talk about villains. So, when designing, like, a villain, I kind of like to do 6, you know, kind of like similar to the protagonist, where they have, like, 6 positive traits and 3 negative. For the villain, I like to do 6 negative traits and 3 positive traits to make them redeemable, right? An antagonist is like one of your most important characters in the story. Whatever they're doing, usually they feel like they're the hero of their own story. They feel like what they're doing is right. And, you know, they're not just, I mean, unless they're doing it for evil's sake, you know. I feel like that's an empty goal, like, you know, doing evil for evil's sake. There's always got to be, like, you know, a stronger reason why. Because if you have, like, a stronger reason why that's, like, relatable to the reader, I think that'll be kind of, like, good, you know. So, in terms of, like, parallels, what I like to do for villains sometimes is I'll have, like, the story is going to be about the character trying to overcome a certain thing, right? And you know, that could be, like, say for example, Kalen's you know, his desire to do something alone. He wants to do everything on his own and you know, have no help. But he needs to learn how to, like, you know, work together with others. That's his story. But the antagonists, what I use them for is to be a dark mirror, to show the reader and show the character that this is what you could become if you went down the dark path all the way. It is exactly, you know, you and I are not that, you know, that different type of context. Where it's like, I am showing you what you could be. We are super close. It's just I went one way, you went the other. I like that. That for me is fun as a villain. because it shows the, you know, the character that like, you know, this is wrong and I can't be you, you know. So to have something to fight against, to contend against, it's like, it's, you know, it's a very poetic way of like dealing with you know, story to story type of like struggles with when you have an antagonist. What about powers and abilities? Probably falls under like the discussion that we had for magic systems. Basically, like in terms of like powers and abilities, that's an interesting question. Like how to design them, how to apply them, what's, you know, what can they do? I don't know. I think that like for me, when I think of powers and abilities, it's usually associated with the magic system, and the magic system is kind of like you know, there to just, you know, kind of dictate like what kind of powers, abilities, or things that are available in the world, right? But for me, like magic systems and like you know, powers and abilities, it like when you have magic in the world is going to change dramatically, right? They wouldn't advance in technology, or they wouldn't like you know, logically make those leaps if it exists. So think about that. Think about like if, you know, if people could make magic light, right? Like, you know, let's say they make light from crystals, or they make, you know, they have sticks where they cast the light spell on it and then just like cast a permanent spell on it, and that stick just becomes illuminated forever. Why would you ever want to make a light bulb? It's easier to do magic. Which means that if there's no light bulb, if there's no other technologies around it, you know, if you have like different types of things, why would you, you know, like if it's easier to fly, or if it's easier to teleport, or like, you know, use like these hover crafts and stuff, why would you need a car? You know, there would be no invention of the engine. There would be no you know, all these other inventions like cell phones or you know, computers and things like that. It would have to match what is available in terms of magic. You know, how does your magic change the evolution of technology and their peoples? So this is like the type of things that like I like to think about when you introduce a magic, you know, into the world. Like, how does it you know, how does it change the world? So if like there's like a, you know, it would make sense that if a magic is not very common at all, and there's not a lot of people who have magic, then yeah, sure, technology would definitely rise. But if magic is super prevalent and everybody can do it, kind of hard to think that like the light bulb would even be invented. You know, it's like a real hassle to go through all that, the resources, the energy, you know, like how many, you know, people would it take to build the infrastructure in order to make a power plant just to get that light bulb to work, when you could just cast light, you know, like so it's like thinking about like how we evolved as human beings, and how they would evolve as human beings as well with the magic that they have. That's one of the things I like to think about. You introduce something, think about all the ramifications, the implications, and all the other different things that could like fly from that one puddle dropped into a lake. How far does that ripple go, you know? It's crazy. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So like you can definitely get into the issue of writing yourself into corners, which is a real pain in the ass. I've been doing that 6 ways to Sunday, dude. Like you know, it's been super difficult. Oh God, it's been super difficult to like you know, sometimes like write a character out of a situation, or try to be, you know, creative to get out of like you know, these things, because it's like, you know, with the magic that they have, it's like, man, the bad guys aren't stupid, right? They'll want to they'll kind of like want to like, you know, they're gonna do their best to win, and like they're gonna play by their rules and what they have for magic, and it's like, well, you have to play by, you know, the rules as well. So like, you know, it becomes this interesting like, you know, battle. I like the idea of limitations on magic. I like the idea that the rules make sense, that they're kind of clear. And that's like, that would be called like a hard magic system versus like a soft magic system. For those who are uninformed, the soft magic system is the idea that like you don't really, it doesn't really explain like what goes into magic. It doesn't really explain what spells are available. It kind of just like magic does magic when magic is ready, or magic does magic when, you know, it serves as a deus ex machina, a solution to a problem randomly. Like, you know, there's no indication, there's no rules, there's no things to tell you ahead of time, hey, this spell is available or not, you know, like, you just, like, if it's available, it'll make itself present when it's convenient. I'm not really that into that type of stuff. I would like hard magic systems, in the sense that, like, you know, here's what you can do, here's the rules behind the magic, you know. And I think that, like, there's also like a semi there's like a, you know, like, there's kind of like a mixture in between. So let's take like Avatar: The Last Airbender, for example, right? So like that would be kind of like a mixture between hard and soft magic systems. It's hard because, like, earthbenders can't earthbend unless there's earth nearby, or metal or something, right? If they have nothing there, they're not doing anything. Like, you know, you need water to water bend, or you need blood or something, that type of stuff. So, like, you know, there is a hard limit that this must be in the area. You know, the rule says, unless you have earth, you can't do the magic. So, like, that's what I mean by, like, hard magic system. An example of soft magic system, oh, well, again, I guess, like, semi-soft or whatever. I don't know. I'd like to picture, like, Gandalf. Gandalf would probably be a soft magic system, because, like, you know, Gandalf casts spells, but can you do you have a list? Do you actually know what Gandalf is fully capable of or not? I don't know. He just does things when, like, you know, when it's important to do so. Like, is there? He does what he does, yeah, exactly. He does what he does when it's important to do it. So, like, you know, the only thing that you need to know is that he's a wizard and he has these powers. Can I say something? What's that? Base moment. Let's see here. Because someone will always think, that's all. Think outside the limits of what people believe. Yeah, but, like, if you're playing by the rules, then that's a hard magic system, right? So, like, you know, Mistborn is a good example of that. So, like, you know, say for example, you have an ability to, you know, push metals or pull metals, right? And it's based on your weight. So if what you're pushing on, if you're heavier than what you're pushing on, that thing's going to be pushed. If, like, you know, you're heavier than the thing that you're pulling on, that thing's going to be pulled toward you. This is the rules. This is the hard rules of what's, you know, available. However, you can think outside the limits and play in the playground of the hard magic system by, like, dropping a coin on the ground and then using your ability to push and then fly and jump into the air. So, like, you know, that's playing within the rules. So, but, like, the thing is that, like, you know, if you change the rules on the fly, that becomes a soft magic system. So, like, I think, like, I like hard magic systems because of the fact that, like, it locks in believability to the story. Like, the minute that you throw in, like, something random, you know, there better be a good reason as to, like, why. Otherwise, it kind of feels like a deus ex machina or something, like, you know, like, it feels like a very, I don't know, like a shortcut or lazy way of, like, solving a problem to the story. But if you can use the hard system that you've set up and be clever with it, that's cool, you know? So that's all. So I mentioned my characters. So I mentioned my characters. Let's see, give them abilities, kind of mirror each other. Iron body hardens body, like metal, and adds. How about, like, instead of, like, you know, iron body, how about just, like, liquid, or, you know, like, flexible, you know? Can you imagine, like, doing, like, a Luffy, like, from One Piece? Just being able to, like, you know, instead of, like, you know, full on brunt force taking the hit, you bend around it, you know? Yeah. So I think, like, I like the idea of, you know, having a hard magic system specifically because it allows you to be clever with what's, like, you know, there, and it just, like, creates such great character moments when you learn how to, like, you know, do something new. Like, say, for example, when Toph learns how to iron bend, right? Like, you know, the rule originally was, you know, they can't bend metal, but then somebody proves that you could, you know? So it's like, so long as you, like, kind of show the lead up to that and, like, you know, it makes sense to the world, then yeah, you know, it's kind of cool. It's like, well, nobody ever tried doing this type of thing, or, you know, extending their, but it, like, you know, it would make sense that metal would be within the realm of Earth, right? It comes from the Earth, so, like, you know, that there's a logical jump that could be made there. Same thing with, like, fire, for example, right? Like, fire, there's a logical jump that you can make, that, like, fire could also be used to create ice, right? If you are creating fire, it's got to come from somewhere, you know, that heat's got to come from somewhere. So it's not crazy to say that you can take, you know, thermodynamics, rip the heat out of something, and then freeze that other thing instead. You know what I mean? So, like, yeah. The thing is that, like, I understand what you're saying there, Imposter, but the presence of rules makes it a hard system, period. It doesn't matter whether or not you can break it, or, you know, if you can go beyond it. The fact that there are rules makes it a hard magic system. If there are no rules at all, that's a soft magic system. Any type of rule at all. Like, you know, Superman can only use, like, you know, laser beams or whatever and blah, blah, blah. So, like, you know, Superman can only do what he can do, and that's a hard rule, you know, until it's, you know, broken by some other thing. But, like, you know, there have to always be a reason for it, and then the reason why they say broken is because it's hard and it breaks. Whereas soft magic system, there's no rules to break, there is nothing to break, right? So, like, that's why it's soft, nothing to break. It's, you know, magic just goes with magic where magic wants to go. When the rules are broken, the hard breaks. So yeah, that's basically what it is. But I got your argument now. I missed the point earlier. Lord. Yeah. Now, I don't, like, we try not to deal in absolutes, because there's always, like, a gray area, and there's always, like, a way of doing things, you know, around it. And I believe, like, you know, I agree with what you're saying, like, you know, in order to keep, like, flexibility with, you know, magic, and, like, wanting it to be, like, whatever the creation or, like, the creativity of your world is. I mean, you can totally keep adding on to it, right? There's nothing wrong with, like, adding on to, like, a, you know, a hard magic system or whatever. It's just, like, you know, for simplicity's sake, hard magic system is just, like, a term that's coined by, you know, Brandon Sanderson, basically, with his, like, concept of, like, hard magic being, like, rules-based magic. There's some rule associated with that magic. Rules can be broken, they can be bent, but there are rules in general. If there are no rules, there's no, you know, it's just a soft magic system. Yeah. There's a book that I read that has a really, really good quote. Creature who doesn't think on their own skills. Yeah, that's cool. That's badass. I need to catch up with He Who Fights with Monsters, man. I can't remember if I'm on book 4 or 5. I think I'm on 5. Still working on it. But I did. I think I'm caught up with the Good Guys and the Bad Guys series for sure. I'm also working my way through the Wandering Inn. Have you done Wandering Inn yet? Like, because there's a couple books that are out. I'm still working my way through it though. It's so good. Also, what do you call that? Yeah, the second one was like a little eh. There are some moments that are really good, but to be honest, like, while I do love the characters and I do love like the, this vast and sprawling world that she's created, does it hold my interest immediately? No, not really. What I like about it is that it like kind of fills up the silence in the day, and it's interesting enough to keep going on, which is like, why I'm kind of hooked on it, and I like the characters. I think the same thing can also be applied to the like, He Who Fights with Monsters. Like, there's a lot of things that they, kind of do in the story that just kind of feels like, well, I'm just waiting for the cool parts to happen, like, fighting or, some stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of characters that they visit or talk to or whatever, and it's just like, I gotta say that I think it's either 4 or 3, I can't remember, but like when he goes to the the human world, that's fucking cool. I really enjoyed that one. The extra, what's the extra is good character development. Oh yeah. That's at least you're right on that. You're absolutely right on that. It all works towards like character development, but I just get bored after a point. That's about it. It does really work well to like, I think that's one of the coolest things about Jason, because it's like, he's constantly able to like, he was so different from like when, the first world, right? Like, the first world, he had like his own morals, or like, sorry, the first book, he has like his own morals about like, what he believes is right and wrong, the typical human ones. He was very like, not confident, and he was trying to be polite, and he was like a very boring character at the start, but then he starts going through this like phase where it's almost like he's becoming an edgelord, right? And and that was an interesting thing, but then he slowly kind of matures, you see that, and then he develops more into like a I guess a confident action hero, which is kind of cool. It really is interesting to see like, the different phases of like what power could do to you and like how you can become something else. Yeah. I would say, actually, that could be an interesting way to do it, imposter. So let's talk about that. So like, the way I like to try to like design and keep interest in like a story, essentially. One, make sure that like when you're writing a scene, everything is pointing toward the climax, right? Is this scene helping me describe or answer the question at the end of the story? Like, will this main character succeed? Is that is it helping answer that question? Is the character development that important to their the success of the ending? That's something to consider. Is this scene, like, is this item necessary toward the victory? Is this is this scene or whatever necessary toward the victory? Sometimes there's like things that are like really good for like character development, but in order to keep like a tight story that like holds interest and keeps things focused and moving, sometimes those things need to be cut. That's kind of like when you decide like whether or not you want to like keep those things. If you can tell the same story without the scene and have it still be successful, then chances are it needs to be removed. Aside from that, like when you're writing the story, just make sure that you like pepper in a couple of like setbacks. Like it shouldn't be too easy. Right, let's see here. All right, so those of you who don't know, my name is NovelistCrim. This was Writing, Company, and Motivation. an accountability stream. We usually host these streams on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern. So look out for that. If you haven't, I recommend you leave a follow. It's a great way to get notified when we do this type of stuff. You can also check out our Discord by hitting !Discord in chat, and that'll give you a link to the channel, which is pretty cool. Let's see here. Let's see. Pasta cure. Alright, guys. It's time to end the stream. So, anyways, thanks so much for stopping by, guys. Take it easy, and as always, stay passionate.